Welcome back to the channel. Today video is about our / best of Reddit stories. First story.
How did you get revenge on your cheating girlfriend? I fattened her up, got her addicted to cigs, put her on the streets, and turned everyone against her. My girlfriend of 5 years at the time and I were going through a rough patch. I had just entered my last year of medical school and was always busy. Even though we lived together, we never really spent time together anymore. Because of the sudden lack of free time, she got very lonely. She would tell me all about the conversations she had with these people, and at the time I was happy because it meant I could spend more time on my studies and I wouldn't feel bad about being unable to spend time doing things with her. One day she told me she got into role-playing. At first, I was a little weirded out, but she assured me that it was entirely innocent and platonic. She even invited me to watch it. I could tell she was really excited and having a good time, so I pushed aside my feelings because I still felt like I was wronging her. One day, she told me about this guy she met online. He was funny and smart and I would like talking to him. She and he became best friends very fast. They exchanged phone numbers and they would text all the time. I didn't think too much of it, because she had my very deepest trust, and honestly I didn't have time to think anything about it. This went on for a few months. Eventually, she started changing, although it was so slow I didn't notice. She stopped telling me about what went on online, she was never more than an arm's reach from her phone, and she changed her passwords on all of her devices. I was so afraid of losing her, I didn't push anything or ask about why she was changing. I figured it was all my fault because I was unable to spend time with her. One day though, I decided I needed to change for her benefit. I talked with my doctor and got my prescription changed. I was able to focus much better and as such we were actually able to do things again. She was ecstatic, and our relationship improved fivefold. Everything was going great until the revelation. One day, while studying, my laptop crapped out on me. I asked if I could use hers, and although she was hesitant, she let me use her laptop, although she never gave me the password. Even though this was normal at this point, I could still tell something was off. Despite this, I was too focused on my work to care. Right as I was finishing up, a Skype message came up. It was her friend from online, the one she constantly texted. I realized at that moment that I never heard about what happened between them anymore. I'd completely forgotten about him. I opened up the chat window and started scrolling up. What I saw floored me. I quickly installed a remote access Trojan, downloaded the Skype chat logs, and gave her laptop back like nothing happened. She didn't notice a thing. Later on, I opened her chat logs, and to this day I wish I hadn't. I wish I just broke up with her then, but my curiosity got the better of me. For months they had been sending explicit messages to each other. They'd webcammed for hours in the messages I saw. She said things to him she'd never said to me. She called him her master. When he got mad at her she begged for his forgiveness. I discovered she had started paying for his internet and phone bills because she couldn't stand to be without talking to him. And it wasn't just intimate messages. They also sent truly heartfelt messages to one another. Love was tossed about frequently. She said the only reason she hadn't left me is because I gave her whatever she wanted. I was instantly nauseous, my vision narrowed, my heart started pounding, and my blood ran cold. For about 2 or 3 weeks I was in a deep depression. Here she was, sending him all these messages, but she seemed so happy with me. I had no idea what I was going to do. One night though, something just snapped. I wasn't going to stand for this, and she needed to pay. Developed a multi-step plan for revenge. I lost something that night. I no longer trust anyone else, nor do I really feel strongly about anything anymore. Using the data I got from the keylogger, I accessed her Skype account and started sabotaging their relationship. I would act as her. I acted belligerent, scheduled webcamming sessions, and then would not show up. I told him not to text her phone because I was getting suspicious. Luckily, he was the type to get angry easily. Furthermore, he knew nearly all of her close online friends, oftentimes better than she did. One day she came to me, tears in her eyes, and told me that all of her friends had, for some reason, started hating her. She was crying because she was all alone, but I assured her that we still had each other. Now, all of our free time was spent together again. Our relationship grew ever stronger, or so she thought. I also started lifting weights. I started cooking high-calorie meals, and she ate whatever I gave to her. Whereas we both ate around 2,000 calories a day before, now we ate 3,500 calories per day. I gained a lot of muscle, and she just gained a lot of fat. After 9 months, I was in better shape than I'd ever been, and she was in the worst shape of her life. I reassured her that I still loved her for who she was, though, and she seemed content with it. After she had gained around 40 pounds, I bought anti-smoking patches, and I applied them to her in her sleep and took them off before she woke up. This literally got her addicted to me. Whenever I was away for a few days I would get texts and calls where she seemed like she was on the verge of breaking down. Because of her weight gain, she found it difficult to do her job. She would always come home dead tired, and in pain. I helpfully suggested to her that she quit her job. I could easily support both of us on my residency salary. She took that suggestion and took it fast. She walked out of her job the very next day. Now over a year had passed since I learned she was cheating on me. At this point, she was out of a job, very overweight, and still friendless. She was dropping hints about a ring, and I thought it was the perfect way to finalize my revenge. We went shopping for a wedding ring, and I made sure to get the ring with the 60-day return policy. I proposed to her later that week. I was able to convince her to sign a prenuptial, making sure that we all got our own stuff and the ring would get returned, by withholding the nicotine patches and putting her through withdrawal, thus weakening her resolve. Her parents were overjoyed, as they loved me like a son at this point. After a month of being engaged, I confronted her about it and she started breaking down. I instantly broke off the engagement, ignoring her threats of unaliving herself. I regretfully told her parents about what she had done. At first, they didn't believe me, until I showed them the logs, and they were horrified. They apologized for their daughter's actions, saying she wasn't brought up this way, and that she would no longer be welcome in their house. Our friends quickly learned on Facebook, and they universally rejected her. It helped that I acted heartbroken and depressed. At this point, she was now homeless, friendless, jobless, without family, in poor physical shape, and addicted to cigarettes. I stopped talking to her, but from what I can tell she got on Social Security to make ends meet. Last I heard, she got arrested for substance charges. I am now a practicing physician and have plenty of close friends. I don't regret a single thing I did.
Next story.
I discovered what really went down at my fiancée's bachelorette party. I don't think I can marry her anymore. My fiancée is the love of my life. She's my ideal woman and I wouldn't change a thing about her. But recently I had started feeling insecure about our relationship. I'm not proud to admit it, but I decided to snoop on her phone last night. While looking through her phone I saw a notification go off. A message from her friends about the bachelorette party came in, so I started obsessing over it like a stalker from TV. I stayed up all night checking her computer and Facebook messages, and discovered she had cheated during the party. By cheating, I don't mean getting a strip tease or something, which I would be okay with. I understand it's a bachelorette party, but she actually gave a stripper some slop and ended up going home with another one that night. She has this other guy added on Facebook, but the chat merely consists of a message that says, "Had a good time and it was nice to meet you." The date goes back to the night of the bachelorette party. I have read the messages between her and her friends. They have a small group and I found out what she'd done there. It all seems as if it was a one-time thing that happened, but I am a mess. I haven't slept all night, and she is headed for work in an hour. We were supposed to get married in 3 weeks. We were planning on buying a house together, having kids and growing old. I feel like I want to throw all of that out the window. I am sitting here smelling like liquor, feeling sloshed and depressed. Honestly, I just wanted to stomp her out. I left in the morning to take a smoke. My head was still messed up, but other than this night, nothing I found indicated anything else. I guess she wanted this to be her last night before settling down or something. I honestly don't know and I don't care. When I was outside taking a smoke, about 15 to 20 minutes or something after I left, she had woken up. She noticed the drinks out and asked me what I had been up to. Basically came to give me a kiss and a hug. I followed through with it but honestly felt empty doing it. I didn't want to give her any hints of what I knew. She asked why I had been drinking and why I didn't come to sleep last night. I told her I was just having some nightmares, but everything was fine. I felt detached, like I was watching myself in the third person through a TV or something. She asked me if any stress was related to the marriage and the plans. And I just told her something along the lines of, "I love you. How can you be stressed about the best thing in your life?" She got herself ready and left for work. I basically started packing my most important things. I called and canceled the venue where we were supposed to be having the wedding. Apparently, they took 15% of the money for canceling early because we were having such a big event. I told them it's fine and I really don't care at this point. I also saved screenshots of everything and have taken them with me. Around 1 p.m., I called a taxi and went to stay at a hotel about 60 miles away from my city. I didn't leave any notes or pictures at home, I just left. I just needed the alone time in the hotel to think everything through and process what had happened. At around 3:30 p.m., my phone started getting spammed with calls from my ex-fiancée. I started getting calls and messages from her sister, her friends, her parents, my parents and a few of our mutual friends. The only person I called back was my dad and my mom. I have huge trust in my parents. I basically spilled the beans and told them a nicer story about what happened. I asked my dad not to say anything and also asked my mother not to say anything. I told them it's ended, it's over and that I won't be getting married anymore. I also told them not to tell anyone about what I told them. I didn't tell them exactly what happened, just that I found out she wasn't being loyal to me. I didn't think giving details would help anyway. Around 5 p.m. my dad calls me back and tells me that my ex-fiancée is completely hysterical and is basically broken down. Completely not understanding what is going on. I just told my dad not to intervene and that I need some alone time now. I basically just shut my phone down and I've been staying silent ever since. Her sister knew about what happened at the bachelorette party. And I have the text to prove it. She even laughed about it and told her not to feel guilty because it was a bachelorette party and that women should just go all in on that night. I really feel like Neo in the Matrix dodging bullets in slow motion. However, instead of dodging bullets, I have dodged a floozy wife and unwanted children. With this wife's endless fights and tons of depression, I honestly feel a lot better knowing that my life will get better. Unfortunately, she has broken down and is begging me to take her back. So is her sister and her friends. They also came up with the worst excuse of what actually happened. I had this gut feeling that she was going to come up with an excuse of some sort. I picked up the phone and the first thing I heard was a torn voice. I could hear she had been crying all day and was in a messed up state. She kept begging me to come back, that there was an explanation for everything and that she loved me. She said I had misunderstood the entire situation. I told her to explain it to me right then and there. She said because I only saw a small part of the conversation that it's all been misunderstood, that I should come back home, and that I had made an irrational decision to leave. During the entire conversation, I was just giving really short, empty answers in a cold manner. After she told me it was all a misunderstanding, I told her to call me back in 10 minutes and to check Messenger. After I hung up, I sent her the entire conversation with a ton of screenshots. Not all of them, but most of the important ones. It didn't take 2 minutes for her to call back crying hysterically, saying she was sorry for everything, that she wanted to die rather than lose me. She said she was forced by her friends and her sister to have fun one last time, and that she needed to let all the energy out before stepping into a marriage for life. I stayed silent. The more I didn't talk and just said okay, the more she was crying. She started telling me that I could sleep with other women if I wanted to get back at her, or that she would tell everyone about what she did so I could take her back. I told her sleeping with other women was not something I needed because the moment I met her and started loving her, she was the only woman I wanted. I didn't need to meet or sleep with someone to know the best thing in my life was waiting at home. She kept begging and begging, so I just told her if she comes clean to her parents and her family, I would think about it. After that, she started saying something, but I just hung up. Suddenly, her father called me up and apologized for everything. He and his wife know what happened now, and he was so sorry for all of this. He told me he understood how I felt and that he didn't raise his daughter to do that. His wife basically stole the phone from him and told me that her daughter had never been this destroyed before. I politely told her that I appreciated her opinion, and then I said, I have to go, goodbye. My ex-fiancée calls me back and begs me again, saying she told her parents and also sent a text message to our mutual friends about what happened. She kept apologizing on the phone and I didn't say much. After some time, I just told her not to cry, and that she shouldn't be apologizing because single women like herself are allowed to do these things, and I hope she finds Mr. Right. She starts crying even harder. My ex-fiancée is unable to breathe and hands the phone off to her sister. She grabbed the phone and said, we told everyone what happened, are you going to take her back? I only said I would think about it. She then tells me that her sister is turning into a dangerous situation of wanting to unalive herself because of all of this. The only thing I said after she told me that was, it's a good thing you are close to her so you can make sure she doesn't do that to herself. Maybe take her to a doctor or something. After this, I just hung up. My phone has been blowing up with messages from everyone and I don't plan on responding. I honestly feel a lot better right now, like I can move on.
Next story.
My husband is cheating on me with our dogs. I, 28F, have a daughter, 3 months. Honestly, I didn't want to have children because I was the oldest of 5 and always had to all-around care for everyone I had ever been with. Me and my man played with fire and got burned. I am happy as a mom, truly. I love this baby more than I thought possible, and she makes me smile even when I'm crying. My fiancé, 28M, is a great dad when he is actively trying. I know he loves her and me so much, so I hate complaining or even having building resentment going on. He's been helping around the house sometimes, doing laundry, and feeding the dogs now, which he rarely did before. Because I did it all. And I've been appreciative. However, I am getting annoyed. Especially at the fact that he's never even tried to help at night, putting her to bed, feedings. Anything. Despite my complaints, tears, and several occasions expressing that I need help. I have made every excuse in the book for him. My toxic trait. Maybe he's too tired? He works a normal job, Monday through Friday, 7 to 4. He says when he comes home, his brain is fried from the heat, and he needs a little bit to unwind, which I get. He works outside in the 100+ degree heat right now in direct sunlight all day. I feel for him. I am self-employed, so I can handle being home with her all day and make my schedule. But even when I get up at 5:30 a.m. for a job, I have to keep her all night and take her with me. Tonight she is still fighting her sleep at 1:20 a.m. Every time I get her to pass out, I go to lie down, and she's back awake crying. Where I know he hears us. I know he can see and witness how exhausted I am during the day, and I just thought once a month, maybe I would get some assistance. He comes home and showers, watches YouTube on his phone and then gets on his PC and Discord till whatever time to eat almost every day. I don't even have time to take a she by myself, wash my pump parts and bottles till they pile up, and cook. Most days, and I have to wait for him to be done gaming so I can shower every night. I don't have time to open my laptop to work most days, either. I'm not getting work out as fast as I wish, and I'm unable to market/promote or even schedule posts much, so I'm not getting as many bookings, and we have separate bills/finances. Luckily, I set back money when I found out I was pregnant, but I'm almost through it all. My dogs are unkempt and barely get attention. I wish I had an hour of free time for F's sake. Yes, I've told him these things, and last week, we got in a fight, and I reiterated that it's been 3 months of her life, and I hadn't gotten 1 4-6 hour window of continuous sleep except when his sister sat in our living room and watched her while I slept with him home when I was about to have a mental break. That is so mentally draining. I am unhappy with my body, and my mental is getting darker on lack of sleep. I also told him I feel like he's missing the best parts of her cause he's not very involved. He has only changed a small portion of diapers, and he only holds her a half full of times a day, and half the time puts her in her swing. I don't want to come home when I go to my mom's or mother-in-law's. Why? So I can watch him play games and ignore us, or watch TV or scroll like I do every effing day cause I'm locked in my seat if she's feeding or sleeping. He's heard us next to him when she wakes up and knows when I leave the room crying. Lately, he asks if I'm okay, and I'm verbally not okay. But I feel like he doesn't give a shit cause he has never gotten up or rolled over to help, even when tears are rolling from me. I am a good mom. I handle it most of the time with no tears, but some nights are so hard. I've been breastfeeding, which is another excuse I have given him. Still, I've had a reserve for him to feed her in the fridge and freezer since the 2nd week. When I got pregnant, I thought I wanted 2 kids, so she wasn't an only child, but at this rate, how could I even handle? I'm so sad. It's turning into depression, I think. And I am afraid my relationship will fail because I realize he just doesn't care as I thought. Anyway, I popped off a few days ago and said I didn't sign up for this, being a single parent, and he said that was hurtful. I proceeded to tell him what was hurtful was having to do it all and still pay all my bills and handle all the things I handled before. It's impossible and unfair. I don't know how else to get through to him, and I'm over trying. What do I do? Am I the a-hole? After all that, I went out to feed the dogs one day and saw my husband crouched in the doghouse. He seemed to be exerting a lot of effort, so I rounded the corner, and lo and behold, he was holding the effing chihuahua and face effing it.
Next story.
15 years ago my parents declared me legally dead to steal my money. Now they want to reconcile. This story began over 30 years ago in Germany. I had just turned 16 and was accused of stealing a neighbor's car and wrecking another neighbor's fence with it while running away from the police. I was drunk when the police picked me up, as it was legal to drink in Germany at this age. I proclaimed my innocence but nobody believed me. I was convicted and sentenced to 500 hours of community service because I was unrepentant. My parents used it as a tool to take away my time with my friends. They got the judge to agree that I had to work Friday and Saturday evenings at the THW, which was an organization that provided disaster relief and sometimes soup kitchens. Also, I lost my license for mopeds and could not get a driver's license till 20. In addition, when I finally wanted to get my license I would have to pass a psychological test. Also, I had saved about $5,000 for a car, but this was used to pay for damages. Sadly it worked. My friends soon lost interest in me because I was not available to party during the weekend. Also, we were very vehicle oriented and I was destined to be a pedestrian for 4 years. An uncle of mine, who led the local THW, conveniently lost my timesheets for my community service work, which forced me to work there for 14 months. By the time I finished, I had a bit over 900 hours in community service. When I came out, my parents told me they had asked my uncle to keep me there longer so that I would be forced to learn to take responsibility for my actions. They also justified this, saying that they were doing it for my own good and to save me from my friends. However, I finished my hours unrepentant and furious with them for essentially doubling my sentence. When I finished, I was in great shape and did well in school as I lost my friends and had no interest in acquiring new ones after seeing how fickle they were. Focusing on academics was an outlet that was not forced on me by others and I enjoyed it. Then I found out who had actually crashed the car. I told the police and my parents and tried to get my sentence repealed. I tried to have a retrial but failed because my sentence was already served. On top of that, the guy who actually did the deed was sentenced to only 100 hours of community service. At his trial it came out that several people had known it was him, including my parents who made him pay for the damages almost a year ago. They had put the money in a bank account, which they told me I would get, once I had finished my education. They also told me they added what would now be equal to $8,000 to the savings account for the hours I had put in with the THW, which was a generous wage for a teenager. Still I was furious with them because I still had to wait until I was 20 to get a driver's license. If they had told me sooner I could have gotten the sentence repealed. Also, while they claimed I would get this money in about 5 years, for now they had essentially stolen my savings. They refused to give it back because I was 17 and too immature to make my own choices. After a huge fight I took my tent and camped out in the woods. I still went to school every day but refused to come back home. After a week they called the cops on me and they took the tent and forced me to go home. However, once the police left, so did I. I slept wherever I could, which was mostly barns and in the woods if the weather was good, since I now had no tent. On occasion the police found me. My parents called them every day for help. If caught, I would be forced to go home. They'd lock me in a room but I simply waited for school and disappeared after school was out. When I finally turned 18, the police could not force me to go home. I only had half a year left of school, so I continued like this. I had no friends because I smelled funny and no interest in getting any friends because I was hurt. I was not going to let anybody close to hurt me again. Despite it all, I managed to finish school with good grades. After school I used the mandatory military service to disappear. I volunteered for service abroad, which meant Eastern Europe at the time. After 2 years, I was done and had a nice nest egg. I enrolled in a university and studied chemistry. I found 3 good friends and met my first girlfriend, to whom I am now married. Everything went well for a while. Then my life spiraled. I was 29 and working on my doctorate when my parents managed to find me. Occasionally they convinced the police to look for me as a missing case. The police usually found me and I'd tell them that I was fine but wanted no contact with my parents, and that was it. The police would deliver the message and say that they couldn't tell them where I was and that they should please stop involving the police. Then my parents had a genius idea. They filed paperwork that I had died in an accident in Italy. They were my next of kin, so the police gave them my address. Meanwhile my bank account was frozen and the university told me that I was no longer allowed to work on my doctorate while being legally dead. Everything in my life stopped working for me. 2 days into this disaster and my parents are in front of my flat demanding to talk to me, telling me that I forced them to take this step. They forced their way inside my home and told me that they were staying until I was willing to talk to them and mend bridges. I told them if they insisted, they could have the flat. I took my laptop, a few mementos, important documents and a bag full of clothes. I left the keys and walked out. It took me a few months to convince the bureaucracy that tales of my death were widely exaggerated. My landlord was very understanding and gave me everything that was left in my flat after my parents understood that I would not be coming back. They mostly took the photos I had left in the flat. They left a letter which I burned. I was really pissed because being dead caused so many troubles. I was afraid they would find me again, so I took a job in another city as soon as I finished my doctorate. That was about 15 years ago. They have found me again. This time they sent a relative who told me that they were sorry. That they did mean for me to flip out and abandon my house when they found me back then. They were sorry for letting their emotions get the better of them. They would respect it if I still wanted no contact, but they would love to have my wife and I for dinner. Honestly, I am not sure what to do.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.